Yo, what is good, everybody? I'm your boy Jadiro, and this is my leveling guide for Spiritborn in Diablo 4 Season 7. And the first thing that we're going to go over is the main aspects. Let's head right over to our quarterstaff. Now we're going to go the aspect of redirected force. This gives us a fat damage multiplier to our critical strike damage, and it's based off of our block chance. And our block chance will be at 100%. Next, over to our necklace, we're going the aspect of Plains Power. This will create a mystic circle on the ground when we use our Jaguar powers. And based on how many ferocity stacks we have, we get a damage multiplier equal to that. And then finally, for our last main aspect here, we're going the unrelenting aspect. This will allow Crushing Hand to strike additional times and deal additional damage. Now those are the main aspects. Let's go over the flexible aspects next. On our second ring, we're going the aspect of Potent Exchange. This will allow us to gain 1 resolve stack when we dodge. And it'll allow our potency skills to consume 2 resolve stacks and deal additional damage with the damage multiplier. As for our boots, we're simply just going the aspect of concussive strikes. We get a damage multiplier when we daze enemies. As for the pants, we're going the aspect of interdiction. And this aspect will help us get to that 100% block rate, because we get block chance based on resolve stacks. Next, moving over to the gloves, we're going the aspect of unyielding hits. This will give us additive damage every time we use a gorilla skill, like Crushing Hand and Armored Hide. And it scales based off of our armor. As for the chest piece, we're going the duelist aspect. This will increase the maximum ferocity stacks that we can gain. And then finally, for our helm, we're going the aspect of tenacity. This will allow us to gain resolve based on our resource, and it'll also increase the maximum stacks of resolve that we can get. Now, for everyone wondering, resolve gives us damage reduction, and ferocity gives us attack speed. And we get those additive benefits based on how many stacks we have of ferocity and resolve. But if you guys want to skip all the noise and just simply go over to Mobalytics and check out the build for yourself, I have it there for you. And it's called my Season 7 Spiritborn Sun Wukong build. And this is a leveling build from 1 to 60. And I have all the abilities laid out here for you and the aspects. And I also have the Paragon board. And I also have the skill tree available for you. And you can actually click leveling path and you can see the leveling path that I went for every levels from 1 to 60. So what I'll do is I'll include a link in the description and in the comments for you guys to go click, and you guys can find the build there. Now that was all the main aspects and the flexible aspects. Let's go over our primary abilities next. As for our primary or main abilities, we're going Crushing Hand as our core ability. And we're going the version of Crushing Hand that will increase the damage we deal based on how many resolve stacks we generate. Now next, we're going Rushing Claw. This really makes the build come together. And we're going the version of Rushing Claw that will let it reset itself every time we consume 4 stacks of ferocity. And then for our Unstoppable proc, we're going Armored Hide. And we're going the version of Armored Hide that will also give us increased damage reduction. Next, moving over, we're going Ravager. We're going the version of Ravager, so that's when it's procced, our core skills generate additional resource. And we can also dash with our core ability to the enemy. Following that up, we're going Counterattack. And we're going the version of Counterattack that increases our critical strike damage passively. And then finally, for our flexibility, we're going the Hunter. This is our ultimate ability, and I simply just threw it in because it does a butt ton of damage. It's a great move. You could also go the Gorilla if you want, but I like the Hunter better. So that's it for all the primary abilities. Let's go over the passive skills next. Now, I know what you're probably thinking to yourself, how am I generating my resource when I don't have a basic attack? And I'll explain that to you right now. So we're going to jump ahead quickly here, but what you want to do is you want to have Thrash as your basic attack to generate resource. But once we go down the tree here and we get to our key passive of Vital Strikes, you won't need it anymore. And Vital Strikes not only increases the damage we deal to vulnerable enemies, but it also helps us generate our resource. And I'll talk about how we apply Vulnerable in just a bit. So you'll get Vital Strikes, and then you remove your basic attack, and then you could start investing skill points into the Hunter. Now, after that brief explanation of how to swap out our basic attack later in the game, let's go over those passive skills. First off, we're going Vigorous to give us resource regeneration, and then Velocity for some more resource regeneration. And then we're going Balanced Exertion to simply give us more damage with our core abilities. Moving down to our Focus tab here, we're going Focal Point, and this will give us increased block chance with our quarterstaff. And that will change based on the weapon type you use. Then we're going Apex, and we deal increased damage to vulnerable enemies and double that to elite enemies. And then we're going Mirage to give us 60% more dodge chance during evade, and whenever we dodge, we gain 15% critical strike chance for 3 seconds. And then we're going Unrestrained Power to give us a damage multiplier when we're unhindered or unstoppable. And now I'm just going to expand it here if you guys want to see how I did my primary abilities again, but we're going to move right to Endurance. And whenever we cast a defensive skill, we get additional resource. And then we're going Perseverance, so we gain additional damage reduction based on our resolve stacks. And then we're going Patient Guard to give us additional block chance, and it's also giving us block damage reduction. And then we're going auspicious. Now this would just give us barriers maximum life. It pretty much makes us sustainable, and it also makes us pretty tough during our fights. You'll see when I do the rotation demonstration, I always have barrier up. Now moving down to the potency node here, we're going resilient. So when we cast our gorilla skills, we get increased maximum life. And then we're going dominant so that whenever we knock down the enemy, we get a damage multiplier. And we also have the chance to execute non-bosses. And then we're going potent, so whenever we hit an enemy with our jaguar skills, we get a damage multiplier. And again, finally, for our key passive here, we're going Vital Strikes. Again, it gives us increased damage to vulnerable enemies. It helps us with our resources, and it also heals us. So that does it for all the passive skills. Let's move on to the Paragon board next. All right, so as for the Paragon board, again, just get your rare nodes, and the glyph that I went is Spirit. This will give us a damage multiplier whenever the enemy takes a critical strike. Now that we're done with the Paragon board, let's go over that rotation demonstration next. All right, guys, this is going to be a quick one here. Let me just pull up the elite dummies. We're going to make multiple. Now, all you have to simply do is dash around. Let me make it multiple so you can really see the effect of this. So all you got to do is dash around. Once it's back up, we'll get our stonks back. But all we're doing is we're jumping in. We're doing Crushing Hand. I mean, everyone says Spiritborn is done, but it's still alive to me. But I'll show you how zippy we can be once. Here we go. So once we get our dash back up, you can almost dash unlimited. So once I do the pit run later, you guys will see how fast this build really is. All right, so as you can see here, all I'm doing is smashing down my Crushing Hand. I'll drop the Jaguar ultimate when I can. If that eliminates enemy, it resets, so that's pretty cool as well. And then whenever Rushing Claw is off a cooldown, I just kind of zip around. I could also evade between enemies, and you'll see Rushing Claw will reset. So it's up pretty much all the time. So that's a brief rotation demonstration. Let's go over our Spirit Hull next. So as for Spiritborn, I went Gorilla and Jaguar for my Spirit Hull abilities. Now, why I like this setup was simply because we get that barrier all the time on top of Crushing Hand giving us barrier, but I also like the maximum stacks of ferocity. And having Jaguar as the bottom spirit here is simply how we keep Rushing Claw up at all times. So that's it for all the Spirit Hull abilities for the Spiritborn. Let's go over the gems and tempering next. As for our gems in the weapon, I went vulnerable damage simply because of our key passive. And for the tempering on the weapon, I went chance for Crushing Hand to get an extra hit and critical strike damage. Crushing Hand to hit an extra time is the only one that you really want to worry about when you temper. Now, as for the necklace and the rings, I always say, just fix your resistances. Whatever you're struggling with in this department, simply go with the gem that attributes to that resistance. And as for the tempering, I just went resource cost reduction, and I also went Crushing Hand size. That's the only other one that I suggest you get. It just helps when we're dealing damage and wave clear. Now, as for our armor here, I went ruby simply just to give me more armor. Now, if you're not having armor problems, simply put emeralds in there for your main stat. Now, this next part is for people that don't have the Vessel of Hatred. It's unfortunate that people that don't have the Vessel of Hatred can't participate in the RUNEWORDS and the Mercenaries. In our helmet piece, we went Yaks and Lum. So that every time we consume a potion, we get our maximum resource back. And then for our chest piece here, we went Chem and Quay. Every time that we evade, we get additional movement speed. Now, you can always go better runes, but I'm simply giving you guys the authentic experience when you're leveling in Torment 1. As for the mercs, go whatever mercenary you want. Simply, when you're leveling from 1 to 60, it doesn't matter a whole bunch. All you're worried about is gathering that rapport with your mercenaries. And the reason for that is once you get them up to their maximum level, you can start bartering at the mercenary camp, and you can get those GA items or those greater affix items a lot easier. All right, so that does it for all the RUNEWORDS and the mercenaries. Let's go over to the witch powers next. Now, guys, I actually took it upon myself to start leveling up these witchcraft powers. And boy, was I not disappointed. But as for our main witch power, always go Doom Orb. And then I went Purging Touch to increase the damage we deal with our Eldritch powers. And Doom Orb is an Eldritch power. Then I went Aura of Siphoning. This is simply just to keep us in the fight. It does damage and it also heals us. Then I went Shaken Soul. Now, guys, if you're wondering how I applied that vulnerable, this is how we apply vulnerable. It's with Shaken Soul. This is why once we get our key passive, we can drop our basic attack. Because all our Eldritch abilities apply vulnerable. Next, we have Abyssal Resonance. Now, this is awesome simply because it pulls everyone in like Vortex. So we actually don't have to take Vortex to group up all the enemies. Abyssal Resonance will do it for us. And it does a crazy amount of damage. And then we went Fire Bat Servants. Now, this is simply just a whole bunch of damage, and it happens quite frequently. You'll see it once I do the demonstration later. So that does it for all the witch powers, guys. Let's move on to how to level up quick in Season 7 next. All right, I always start off with the housekeeping here. Let's go to our wardrobe. Let's go down to our pets, equip your pet. This will allow you to seamlessly level without having to stop and pick up all the items on the ground. That's what your pet does for you. Next, move over to your consumables tab here and always make sure that you're drinking your elixirs. This gives you a passive experience gain. And you guys probably know it by now. You can hit U on your keyboard or whatever button is on your controller and go to your seasonal blessings. We get smoldering ashes, and we're going to want to invest the first 4 into the urn of aggression. The reason you're doing that is because you're getting another passive experience gain. And then once you're done doing that, go over to the urn of rot and invest your smoldering ashes over there. This will increase the amount of restless rot that drops when you're doing your head hunting in the seasonal theme. And that restless rot is what you use to upgrade your witch powers. And those witch powers are OP. Those were some quick housekeeping tips. Let's talk about how you progress through Season 7 from levels 1 to 60. Now, in terms of difficulties here and how you want to jump tiers as you're leveling, and the fastest, in my personal opinion, is from levels 1 to 20, you want to level on normal difficulty. Then you can level from levels 20 to 40 on hard difficulty. And then finally from levels 40 to 60 on expert difficulty. Now, you can also make the jump at level 50 to penitent difficulty. But I found that was a lot slower of a grind than simply just staying on expert. Now, I know the party finder isn't for everyone, but I leveled exponentially faster by using the party finder. Just a quick tip here, you don't have to do it, but I do recommend it. All right, so let's move on to what you want to be doing to level up quick in Season 7. And yes, of course, you guessed it, it's the seasonal theme of headhunting. Now, on the map, you have 4 locations at any given time. And on these 4 locations, you have these objectives. And these objectives, once complete, give you Grim Favor. And once you have 10 stacks of Grim Favor, you can hand it over to the Whisper Tree, or you can also hand it over to the Raven that's on the map. Now, there's particular do's and don'ts I always recommend for the objectives. And the objectives I've found I leveled up the fastest with were the Fugitive and Purge the Rot. Now, the Purge the Rot, you won't even realize you're doing. It's literally slay any enemy on the map until you hit 150. And then you get 3 Grim Favor. Now, Fugitive is the big boss on the map, and it rewards 5 Grim Favor. So simply what I was doing was I was doing Fugitive, and then I was doing Purge the Rot. And I'd simply jump over to another side of the map and do the same thing, rinse and repeat. Now, the ones I recommend you don't do are the ones that are time gated. What that means is you have to follow an NPC around and wait for the NPC in order to get the Grim Favor. Now, the first one I'll talk about here is Patrol. This could be pretty cool if it happens to wander into a big pack, but 9 times out of 10, it wanders away from the pack. So I highly don't recommend this one. And the worst of all has to be Wisps. Now, this is an NPC that you spawn, and then you have to wait for it to spawn enemies. And it jumps about 4 random spots, and then you get the 3 Grim Favor. Now, if this was 5 Grim Favor, maybe I'd do it. But I also hope they change this too, that the Wisp follows you in the future and it accumulates the enemies that you destroy, as opposed to you having to follow the Wisp around. But yeah, that's my best advice when it comes to what you want to do when you're leveling up in Season 7. All right, guys, you know what time it is. It's time to go to the pit and show you what this build can really do. So quickly, I want to mention here before we do the demonstration, I was able to clear a tier 40 pit. And we pretty much have armor on that you collect throughout your journey through levels 1 to 60. So this is a pretty potent build, and I'll give you guys more context on the validity of this build into the late game after we do this pit. All right, here we are in the pit as a Spiritborn. We're just going to zip around and just jump to all the enemies. Hopefully this works. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. And we're doing a lot of damage there with the witch powers, of course, guys. I wasn't leveling up from my previous videos, so I highly recommend you level them up if you can. But yeah, it's pretty sweet. Yeah, once our dash is up and that that Russian claw keeps resetting, man, like it's nuts. Wow. I'm speechless. But yeah, having a lot of fun playing the Spiritborn, man. People thought it was out. I mean, the build's pretty good. I saw a lot of Pestilence builds going up. That's probably the end game build. I want to make my builds unique to my own ingenuity if I can. So those are the kind of builds I like to make. Again, I always say I like to have fun with Diablo 4. I think that's the main goal here with Diablo 4. It's become, I believe, in my opinion, more of a casual player's game. And I'm cool with that, man. I just want to make these leveling guides to help you guys out. And I always say, if there's anything you guys see that I can improve on, please let me know down in the comments. I'm always open for suggestions. But yeah, here we go. Pretty cool. I think we're zipping through it pretty quickly. And all we're doing is we're literally dashing and we're dropping a crushing blow, or sorry, crushing hand every so often. We haven't had to use our unstoppable proc. And then I'll also proc counterattack, and I'll also proc Ravager every so often as soon as they're off a cooldown. That'll increase the damage we deal as well. That's nuts. But as you can see, I don't need a basic attack because of the vulnerable application that we're making to the enemy. When enemies are vulnerable, we're regenerating resource when we attack, so it's pretty sweet. Yeah, but we're almost there. I feel like the enemies are really spaced out on this one. But, I digress. Yeah, we're almost there. Boom. Yeah, I'm just having so much fun playing this one, man. I can't wait to see what it goes into the late game. I have a funny feeling that'll be pretty good. I have a funny feeling it will be... I might have to start dabbling in the Eagle powers and the Centipede powers. I believe that's where they buffed... I was going to say Monk. It is the Monk. Where they buffed Spiritborn this season. Oh, it looks like I've been going too fast here. We got to find out where we haven't been yet. But yeah, I feel like Spiritborn is one of my favorite classes. Even from Diablo 3, I always played the Monk. And it's one of my favorite classes. So I'm glad that they brought it back and called it Spiritborn in Diablo 4. Alright guys, you ready for the single target damage? Here we go. Jump in all around, and then we're just going to punch the ground. Punch. Perfect. So that's a Pit 20, Torment 1. You guys will easily blast through Torment 1 with this build. Now as for the in-game prospecting for the Spiritborn, I believe this will be able to push into Torment 4. Simply by pushing all the way into tier 40 with this regular gear that I got on hard difficulty, I have no doubt that I'll be able to make this valid in Torment 4. But let's go over that build summary next. We're going Crushing Hand, we're going Rushing Claw, we're going Armored Hide, we're going Ravager, we're going Counterattack, and then we're going the Hunter. As for the main aspects, we're going the aspect of Plains Power, the Unrelenting aspect, and the aspect of Redirected Force. As for all the flex aspects, all the passive skills, I'll chapter that for you in this video. You guys can go check it out there. And you can always jump over to Mobalytics and check the build there. I'll include a link in the description and in the comments for you. Well, that does it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm your boy Jadiro. Sign out for now. Peace.